Okay, we are now live. You can begin when you're ready.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order for Committee AM. Just ask that we take a roll call just to make sure we do have quorum today.
Yes, Councillor Berg.
Yes.
Councillor Bradley.
Present.
Deputy Warden Hand.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Napper. Councillor Napper. Chair Rombouts, I have you. Councillor Veen. Councillor Weber. And Warden Meredith. We do have a quorum,
Okay.
Chair Rombouts.
Okay, thank you. I will ask anyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interests. And we will go on to the Board of Health Medical Officer of Health update on COVID-19. I believe we have staff here to give us an update. Do we have Andrew Taylor? I believe somebody had mentioned that he was going to be here to give us an update.
Hi, it's Kevin Churchill here. We were expecting Andrew, so I'm not sure. Was he present at your in-camera session?
We haven't had an in-camera session yet. We're going to do that at the end of the meeting, I believe.
I see. Okay.
We can skip over this until, oh, there's Andrew.
Okay.
He's just connecting to audio right now. Good morning, Mr. Taylor. Are you prepared to give us an update from the Medical Officer of Health? Or are we, sorry, you're muted?
Sure. Councilor Ramos, I'm happy to give a brief update on COVID-19 activities. I also have the managers here with me to assist.
Great. I will turn the meeting over to you then.
Thank you. Councilor Ramos, through you, I'll provide an update. As we know, our Medical Officer of Health is on leave. And in his absence, I can report that there's 4 new cases of COVID, bringing our total to date to 3,660. Those 4 new cases have resulted in us being responsible right now for about 17 active cases that staff are working on, or active outbreaks that we're working on in the community. On the vaccine front, I can report that we're at 169,394 doses of COVID vaccine administered throughout Lambton County. And we have reached a milestone successfully today of achieving 70% for fully immunized eligible populations of 12 plus. So that's great news. Our numbers that we've been reporting recently have all been in around the 160,000 plus range for immunizations. So it suggests that our immunizations have plateaued a little bit. We do expect that to change. I'm sure you're aware of many of the recent announcements from the provincial government around new vaccination policies for mandating vaccines in high-risk settings, including healthcare. Institutions locally like Lambton College are making vaccinations mandatory. As well, we're anticipating more information to follow from the Ministry of Education with respect to a new vaccine disclosure policy for all their publicly funded employees. So we expect that to create additional pressure for us for doing more immunizations in the coming weeks. And also there's been some additional eligibility expansion for Pfizer for people who are born in, kids born in 2019. So that creates a little more eligibility around kids that'll be turning 12 this year. So other than that, we're just actively working on strategies to sort of remove the barriers to vaccine. As part of the report that'll be going out later today, We did note that there was about 197 first doses done, which show us that people are still trickling in to vaccine clinics. So to assist with some of the hesitancy, and we are going to be making sure that we're visible out there in the community, doing pop-up clinics. We're going to be putting up some more information this week on our website, getthevaccines.ca. That'll talk a little bit more about the social media channels that we're promoting, etc. And other than that, initiative that we're working on is promoting free transportation options. So those will be posted on our website as well. We're providing those in cooperation with the LEO and the Canadian Red Cross for people 50 plus with disabilities with no access for transportation to our clinics. So other than that, keep an eye out for our drop-in clinic schedule. We'll continue to do those in Optimus Hall in Point Edward, and as well in the Lambton Shores Recreation Center in Forest. So that's where our staff are. As you know, we've wind down our mass immunization centers. So as we have closed those down, we're reverting to other strategies to ensure that everybody who wants to get a vaccine can still get one. So with that long-winded approach, I'll stop there, Councilor Rombolts, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to handle those.
Take a question from Councillor Hand and then Councillor Bird.
Andrew, I heard that there was, and I don't know if this is true, I just heard it, that there was 500 appointments yesterday at Point Edward at the clinic. And I'm wondering your thoughts on, is once a week enough with this surge? Because I know they opened from 11 till 6 yesterday, but once a week seems limited.
Yes, for you, Rombolts. Yes, it's a very good question. I think we're at the stage where our bookings will dictate how much work we need to make available in our communities for immunizations. I can say that that 500 booking last week, you're absolutely right. We do have good experience though when we come out of the sort of mass immunization center like Clearwater or Point Edward Arena, that we have been doing those levels outside in Wyoming Fairgrounds as well as in Forest Arena. So that 500 level of bookings doesn't concern us too much. We can handle those in a day. Even if we need to extend the hours of operation to run the clinic a little later, we can do that. Other than that, I would say if the demand dictates, yes, we will not hesitate to expand because we have the capacity to run additional days each week in our community, wherever we need to do that.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't concerned about 500 in a day because I know that they can easily handle that. It's just if there's still that pent up demand, and then if you know, it's only open on Tuesday and then you have to wait a week. So that's all I was getting at was
Understood.
the possibility of a different day. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Taylor, thank you for your update. I'm just curious, are you in a position to answer questions that I have from the constituents that I would normally ask of Dr. Renaday?
So what I would suggest we do with those, Councillor Bird, is you could feel free to just forward those questions to us. We do have a call center that manages questions, and your constituents don't need to hold those to pass them through you. They should feel free to send them right through to our inquiry line at Lambton Public Health, and I'm happy to provide that the details for that, where those questions can be sent in and then answered in a timely manner so that your constituents are getting answers immediately to those questions.
Oh, I appreciate that, but there is a reason why people call me with these questions. They want them presented through this particular process because they want the public to hear all the questions. So that was always been the reason for asking me to bring them to the meeting. So is there a particular number that I should call with these?
Yes, and maybe what I'll do is we have an inquiry line for Lambton Public Health inquiries. for getting the vaccine. And I will, but I'll have that sent out behind this meeting to all town councilors.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor at this time? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor, for that report and update, and we will see you again soon. We're going to move on to Infrastructure and Development Services Division. There's one correspondence to receive and file. How does the committee want to deal with that correspondence? We have a mover to receive and file that. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Seconded by Warden Marriott. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Hand?
Sorry, I know we've discussed this issue other times in the past, and I thought there was already a policy around Phragmites through the county, and they actually created a position. Is that perhaps Mr. Cole could respond?
Through you, Chair Roundbouts. Absolutely, you're correct, Councillor Hand. So we continue to work to remove Phragmites on our road allowances, and we continue our budget of about $70,000 a year to do that. And that's generally done through a contractor, but we also do some of that work through our own forces. We also have partnered with the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority to establish a Phragmites coordinator program, or Phragmites coordination program. I think I'm going to say that the COVID environment has sort of thrown a wrench in some of that, because a lot of it was supposed to be community outreach. But we do continue to work with the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority to implement a Phragmites coordination program, work with the primary groups, be available to promote the Phragmites eradication in the public, and work with landowners on best practices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? All in favor of receiving and filing that? That is carried. Thank you. We will move on to information reports. Does the committee want to receive and file all of those together and maybe discuss them? Are you making that motion, Councillor Hand?
I am A, B, and C.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Bird, thank you. And would there be any discussion on A, B, or C? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving and filing those reports? Thank you. And we will go on to C, reports requiring a motion. The first one is the report dated August 18th regarding the update appointment bylaw for inspectors. We need a mover and a seconder to have that report put on the floor. Thank you, Councillor Napper. Seconded by, thank you, Councillor Bradley. Any questions or comments on that recommendation? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we'll go to the report dated August 18th regarding second quarter statistics approval authority activity and planning staffing adjustments. We need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation there. Thank you, Councillor Miller and Councillor Hand. Questions or comments on that? I appreciate the report, Mr. Cole, and it's certainly evident that we are in need of some extra staffing. All in favor of that recommendation? That is carried. Thank you. The report dated August 18th regarding Canada Community Building Fund Federal Gas Tax 2021 top-up funds. Need a mover and a seconder to have that report. Thank you, Warden Marriott. Seconded by Councillor Byrd. Questions or comments on that report? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Cole. I don't believe there's any other business in that, so we'll move on to Public Health Services Division. There is some correspondence there. Do we want to receive and file those together? We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those. Thank you, Councillor Bradley, seconded by Councillor Miller. Any questions or comments on any of that correspondence? All in favor of receiving and filing? That is carried. And we have some information reports here. Do we want to file those together or deal with them separately? Do we have a motion to receive and file those reports together? Yes, thank you, Councillor Hand, seconded by, thank you, Ms. Councillor Miller. Any questions or comments on any of those information reports? All in favor? That is carried. And there is a report requiring a motion, the report dated August 18th regarding request for surplus land ambulance donation. We need a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. Councillor Bradley and Warden Marriott. Questions or comments on that report? All in favor? That is carried. Is there any other business for that? Seeing none, we will move on to Cultural Services Division. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Did you have a comment?
I did. Thank you, Councillor Rumbones. Just really quickly, under other business, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our new manager of the Emergency Medical Services Department, Mr. Steve Turner. He's on the call today. Steve joins us from working recently and most recently in public health in London Middlesex Health Unit. And previous to that, he was the deputy chief in Oxford County. So welcome to Steve Turner.
Welcome, Mr. Turner. Glad to have you on board, and you're now in the best county around, so we welcome you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that introduction. All right, we are going to move on to Cultural Services Division. There's 2 information reports there. Do we have a mover and a seconder to receive and file those information reports? Councillor Miller, you want to receive and file those together? Okay, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Byrd, thank you. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Napper and then Councillor Bradley.
Yes, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll just ask Mr. Meyer there. You confirm that all branches will be back to normal early September? Is that what I'm reading in this report? I'm referring to Kimlaki. I get kid all the time. They're anxious to read out. There's a lot of people out there who use that library. I think you're supposed to. And just so I can give them an answer. So I can say that we'll be back to normal in September.
Through you, Madam Chair, and yep, thank you for the question, Lonnie, and it certainly is helpful for some of the other communities as well. So yes, I can confirm that looking ahead to September, plans are in place to reopen all 25 Lambton County Library locations effective Tuesday, September the 7th. So currently we're at our 16 curbside pickup locations are now open for in-person visits, and that will expand out to all 25 Lambton County Library locations September 7th. So thank you for the question, Councillor Napper.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Bradley, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, in a similar vein to Mr. Meyer, the extension of the provincial
rules, which are open-ended now, does that not impact on your ability to reopen, especially with the restrictions on the number of people that can be in an indoor setting?
Excellent question, Councillor Bradley, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so we have prepared for maintaining things like physical distancing. Obviously, masking is in place within our spaces. We've eliminated excess furnishings to accommodate our capacity limits. So each library has a designated capacity limit, and that's posted. We do have at the door, we are greeting people and checking them in and ensuring contact tracing. So there are still public health measures that remain in place to facilitate the in-person browsing and the scheduled computer visits. So it's not essentially back to normal, but we are able to make some adjustments to ensure that those public health guidelines remain in place in the buildings that are open.
Okay, thank you. That answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of receiving and filing that correspondence or that? Thank you. And is there any other business for Cultural Services Division today? Seeing none, we'll go on to Corporate Services Division. We just have one report requiring a motion. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
Well,
Councillor Bradley?
I'll move it to get it on the table if you're referring to the recommendation that Mr. Tifo has put forward to amend the bylaw. And I do have an amendment.
We do need a seconder, Councillor Bradley, in order to get that on the floor. Thank you, Councillor Hand. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, if this motion was to pass, that it'd be in place for exactly 1 year to the next election, and that the new council can review, as they normally do, the rules of order and the rules in place at the time. But it'd be a 1 year pilot project, if you want to call that, just to see if this works or not. From a chair's point of view, and all of you, most of you on this call are chairs, this is going to be difficult. But there have been times outside of COVID, and I'll give you a couple of examples where weather was a big factor in trying to get to a county council meeting. And at least this gives us an alternative. The one concern I have, when travel picks up again, is that someone just simply goes away and decides for a couple of months that they're going to participate this way. But I think we try it. There's nothing wrong with trying it. We've seen in the last 18 months that we can make this work and it can be functional. So I see no harm at all in trying this. And I think most people will want to be in the room when they can be in the room. So I don't see a mass of people, going into the new year that will be participating electronically.
Any other questions or comments about that? Councillor Hand.
I have the similar concerns, and I am not opposed to a temporary measure, but as Mayor Bradley talks about, so is there any rules in place for when you choose not to come? So like if it was because of a medical situation or a weather situation, but what if it's just, I don't feel like driving out there? What are the controls, or is it just left up to the individual?
It's a very good question. Do you want to tackle that one, Mr. Tifo?
Thank you, Chair Roundabouts. It is a very good question. It is one that definitely crossed our minds, but we were sort of in a position to say it's maybe a little bit premature because, again, sort of trying to put many of those sort of boxes to the exercise of I guess, the option of participating electronically in advance of actually trying it out was maybe a little bit premature from my perspective. So I think that with the amendment that's on the floor, trying it out will allow us to start defining those rules should there be a need to define those further rules. But nonetheless, if you do carry this recommendation with Councillor Bradley's amendment for the trial period, essentially expiring at the expiry of this term of council, the rule is still that in-person attendance is the rule. The exception is to participate electronically, and that's what you'd be voting on today. And during that trial period, we would then assess to say, hey, look, do we need to put in place, more definite protocols? And that'll be for council's decision at that point in time, once it's had a little bit of experience with it.
Certainly. Councillor Hand.
Sorry, I don't want to be obtuse, but I think I missed something. So what you're proposing is there's no limitations or guidelines initially. It's the exception to do Zoom or to do, to not be in person. And you'll look at something later. Is that what you're saying? Sorry, Stefan, I missed the first part of it.
Yep, no. And the question was a relevant one. And it did cross our minds to say, hey, look, do we put together a protocol on when and what kind of communications, what kind of information, for instance, do councillors have to provide us to participate online versus in person? And we thought that at this point in time, that'd be a little bit premature without a trial period to see what the issues truly were. And the reasons for that is that rule number 1 continues to be, as the amendments to the bylaw read in the bylaw amendments, is that attendance in person is rule number 1. Members are expected to attend in person, but there may be exceptions. And therefore, I think that's a good start. But if we see that there needs to be more refining, and if council sees that there needs to be more refining of the option to participate in electronically, then we can definitely do that. But I think a trial period will allow us to really refine that rather than jump the gun on that and then start sort of circumventing. And the reason for that was, hey, at some point in time, what right would we have to ask a councillor, say, why are you at home and not here when they can participate electronic? However, that being said, if we see that there's too much participation electronically, it's not working well administratively, it's not working well functionally in terms of chairing a meeting, then of course we can really dive into those issues as they arise.
Councillor Napper.
Yeah, I like the idea of Mayor Bradley's trial period to get the bugs out of the system, but I think the onus is going to be on the county councillors, and I think we're all responsible people. We took the pledge to be there, and I think it's there. This thing is built in there for cases of emergencies, I think, and I think everybody will certainly make every effort to get to a live meeting. I would hope, anyway. But this certainly gives us the opportunity to see those little niches that do it. So, no, I'd support this.
Well, we certainly have seen in the last year and a half that there's varying levels of comfort as far as getting together with large groups of people. And I think we need to respect that. And this gives people who are maybe less inclined to get back out into the public an option as well. Because I know for myself, I would have started up probably a year ago with meeting in person, but other people are not as comfortable with that. So, Councillor Bradley, you have.
Yeah, this is a technical question to Mr. Tifo, and the warden could answer too. Do you need notice? Like, in other words, that someone has to give 24 hours notice, 12 hours notice they're going to be attending electronically? And so, say we use today's meeting as an example at 9 o'clock. If you don't know who's coming in and who isn't, I think it makes it just more difficult for the chair. So would it be appropriate to amend to say that, because you should know in most cases whether you're going to attend or not, so which way?
For you, Chair Rumbaugh, that's a good question again, and we were going to deal with that administratively. So we send out our packages on the Friday prior to the meeting, and at that point in time, we're going to ask administratively through the clerk's office for the individuals to provide us with notice at least 24 hours before, if not earlier, before the commencement of the meeting. And it would be fairly easy from the technical side of things, fairly easy to accommodate anybody who's on the system, and of course those who are attending in person.
Okay, fine. That addresses the question. Thank you.
I think for an emergency situation, if you had a big snowfall and somebody was out in the rural communities, some of us don't get dug out as quickly as the people in the urban centers. So, the will could be there to get to that meeting, and you could be out there going, I just literally can't get out of my laneway. So it's good for that type of situation. I think there's got to be exceptions for every rule at times. But certainly, if you know in advance you'd want to give notice as quickly as possible. Any other comments about this? All in favor of that recommendation? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any new business from corporate services? Oh, sorry, Councillor Napper, did you have a comment? Oh, okay. Sorry. Is there any new business? Seeing none, we need a motion to go in camera. Sorry, Mr. Tifo. Okay, we need a motion to go in camera. Thank you, Councillor Hand. To receive a report and provide instructions on a matter about personal matters of an identifiable employee of the corporation. Seconded by Warden Marriott. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. For those of you watching on YouTube, we have been informed that we will have the capability of coming back into open session for the adjournment and to rise and report any in-camera information. So we will be pausing the live stream while we are in camera and returning back to do the adjournment.
The live stream has resumed. You can begin at any time.
Okay, thank you. Since we're live streaming again, we just need a motion to adjourn the committee AM meeting. Moved by Councillor Bradley, seconded by Councillor Bird. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you all for coming today, and we will see you again soon. Have a good rest of the summer.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody, take care. Go get your shot.